Welcome to Be a Light with Muxiang podcast. I'm your host, Muxiang. This podcast is dedicated to spreading kindness, positivity, and amplifying the importance of human connection and authenticity. Over the years, through many platforms and organizations, I have met many inspirational individuals whose stories, whose journey, and whose messages, whose interactions with me touched my life, my heart personally. And Susan Bailey is one of those people who I met recently. And I believe her story will touch yours too. So let's welcome my colleague, my friend, a mentor, someone from a stranger to become a hero in my life, Susan Bailey, to my podcast. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you for having me and all those kind words. I appreciate you and being here.
I appreciate you. As before I hit the recording button, I already said what's this podcast is about, and you definitely is radiant light for many people, and especially what I experienced with you. So earlier I mentioned about being a stranger and then become someone who I saw you as a hero, as my mentor, is because when I was in a stressful situation, I just reached out to you through LinkedIn. And yeah, well, before diving into details, how about share a little bit about you to our audience?
All right. Well, the short story is that I started out as a science and health teacher, taught middle school for 4 very long years. Decided that being in public education was not for me. Went back to grad school and got a master's degree in health promotion, which was also my passion, and that led me down a path of working in government, in the health space at a health department, in working with organizations as a health coach and culture and well-being strategist as part of the human resources and benefits teams, building well-being and culture from the inside. And then from there, that led me to opportunities to work with organizations that were doing consulting and guiding a variety of organizations from the outside. And the most recent place that I am doing that is at Marsh McLennan Agency, where I lead our culture consulting practice. That's my day job. I like to say by day, I am a culture and well-being strategist and consultant, helping individuals and organizations thrive. And by night slash my free time, I founded a little organization that's just me, which is Rooted Soul, which is focused on connecting to self and connecting to nature. And I host a podcast there. So that's my long short story.
That's great. Yeah, definitely your title and what you did uh, inspired me and it was very impressive. That's why I reached out to you. I was wondering how you see like culture influence in
Mm.
like workspace and all that. Also, I'm curious to learn when I reach out to you. Would love to hear your first thoughts
Mm.
for strangers reach out to you for support.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting. I to hear your question reflected back to me because I would say I didn't see you as a stranger. We were we were actually we had crossed paths. I was following you on LinkedIn. I was seeing you share messages and stories. I felt like I knew you. And so when you reached out and asked for an ear, is how I heard it. I'm always happy to lend an ear. I mean, that's part of what I do as a coach is hold space for others who just might be looking for someone who can do that, who can hold space and reflect back and maybe provide some different perspective. It really depends on what the outreach was for. And in your case, it's rare that I will say no, which which is a good thing as long as, I'm monitoring that with the rest of the things I say yes to. But I'm always happy to say no always happy to say yes to someone if they're reaching out, just looking for some guidance and support. And, I make up a story maybe that often it's just to feel a little bit less alone and a little bit more grounded.
Yeah, that's exactly how you did. You opened your heart and space for me, and as I said to many other mentors too, you may not immediately grant me anything monetary or tangible immediately, but the intangible things actually are very, very valuable, and which is kindness, compassion, and this empowerment, and also the
Mm,
support, and just being there. This is the exact empathetic leadership is about. So
mhm,
that's exactly how you demonstrated. Thank you so much for showing your kindness in the first place.
mm.
Yeah. And so for the workspace, as you said, you worked there, how do you define a purpose-driven workplace? What is a purpose-driven workplace?
Okay. Well, when we work with organizations to help them define, clarify, activate, whatever that might look like, the culture they intend, we begin with the process of making sure everyone has shared understanding of foundational elements. And so the foundational elements for us are mission, vision, purpose, values. Are those clear? Have we also defined them? Do we understand what those words mean? Because the word, and I'll pick on integrity because it is one of the most popular values for organizations and the one that's also got a zillion different definitions. What does integrity mean? How does that show up in the daily basis, right? And so when we work with an organization to around ensuring that the culture they intend to have is the one that shows up every day, we start with the idea of the foundational elements. And within that is purpose driven. We want to be sure that are you showing up? Are your leaders showing up in a way? Or are you showing up for customers in a way that aligns with what you intended to do with those foundational elements, one of which is purpose. And so that's my sort of short answer to that is, are you in alignment with what you say you're going to do? Or is there a gap? And that's sometimes why we get called in is to help close that gap.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, sometimes the theory sounds good, but when
Mhm.
it gets to the action, to the ground level, it takes translation to
Mm-hmm.
really make it to actionable moves and actions really um, translated to the shared like goals and
Mm-hmm.
also they wanted outcomes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because, I'm thinking of one client we work with where one of their values is perseverance. And perseverance is, we want you to persevere through any challenge, right? Well, part of the work that we've done with them is to talk about how far should that go? Are there guardrails to what we do to in order to persevere? Does it persevere at all costs? Does it persevere literally at all costs? Does it matter how much we spend? Does it matter how much energy we put into it? So, that's a simple example of getting clear on when we say a word, what does that shared understanding of that word mean and how that shows up in our world every day?
Yeah, I think that's a great reminder for companies to really think deeper, not just some words to promote, from like high level, and it needs to be strategic that can be effective, truly to cultivate the culture that engage with the employees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're
So
really a helpful tool. I think that gets underused. Um, those foundational elements can, when leadership comes and shares and says, well, we have a team that's not, behaving the way we want them to do. Well, often the question we have is, well, is it in alignment or out of alignment with the values? What does that look like? And, so that's, an example of how we can use them to guide us, to support us, to reorient us. There's so much power in having clarity of those foundational elements.
that's great. Other than this, finding the alignment of the values and also the strategic execution plans, are there other strategies that the organizations should use to cultivate the well-being
Mm,
and also engagement?
mm, hmm. Yeah, I presented this today at a conference. And we were talking about, at a foundational level, if the goal for an organization is to have employees show up every day and give their best effort, fully engaged means I'm there, I'm present, I'm giving 100, maybe more than 100 at times, but I'm giving it everything I've got with intent to give it everything I've got. Um, what does that look like? And I wish the answer was like simple. Um, it's it's not simple. The reality is you've got a wide variety of humans that work for you that represent a wide variety of identities, a wide variety of life circumstance. And so what I encourage organizations to do is think about your people and get to know them. Simply you could understand what demographics by generation do you have in the workplace? Because an individual who is in the age and stage of Gen X, for instance, which is me, can be somewhere between graduating high schoolers and managing parents who are aging.
Yeah.
And so at any given point, I might be in a day distracted by something that a child needs that I'm responsible for, or by something a parent needs. My famous story was a midday call I got a couple years ago when my father and mother-in-law mistakenly gave away um, financial information in a hack, and it was sort of midday panic, because they're retired. But so it's like you just never know, right? But
Yeah.
what's going on with the folks in your organization? Is if it's an older, more experienced worker, and maybe they're thinking about retirement in 3, 5, 10 years, like what do they need? And if it's a less experienced worker, what do they need? So understanding where you are can help you understand their personal life and what might be going on. I'm not stereotyping anybody into one group, but just considering the possibilities of their life and what they might need in order to be fully engaged at work. Are there benefits? Are there resources? Is there policies? Anything that could help them show up better at work every day? And the demographics is an easy one to begin with because most every organization has the data. We use in the culture practice, we use a tool called Culture Talk, which is an archetypes-based personality typing system. Um, some organizations use DISC or Insights or to understand people and their patterns. Culture Talk is archetypes based, which is intended again to help understand myself, how I show up, what are my strengths, what are my shadows, how do my colleagues do that, which understanding each other contributes to social connection, which is a well-being and engagement strategy. If I feel like people know me and care about me at work, I'm more likely to show up and try and give what I've got to be a part of that. I could talk about this question for probably a few hours, so I'm going to pause to let you ask a question or see if you want me to say more, because this is one that, I've been doing this well-being strategy work for
Wow.
25 years, so I need to throttle a little bit.
Wow. Yeah, definitely it resonates with me deeply. What you shared, the strategies, totally, it's like going to the human level, going to really know them and provide the necessary support to their needs, not
Mm-hmm.
just a plan that universal. It's not universal. It's personalized. Nowadays,
Yeah.
it's all about personalized.
Yeah.
So yeah, that also shows they care the employers' investment in the employees. Yeah, when
Mm-hmm.
they felt supported and cared for, they definitely bring the full self to the workspace to do better.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Yeah,
that is
yeah,
true. When you
yeah,
feel seen, heard, and valued, and how you make people feel seen, heard, and valued looks lots of different ways. And one of them is giving them resources. One of them is understanding who they are and their own unique humanness, as you shared.
yeah,
That impacts whether or not they're more likely to show up and be engaged when they do come to work.
yes. And yeah, talking about that, it's also, I assume there are a lot of inclusion strategies, also initiatives in any thriving organizations.
Mm.
Probably you have, if you were invited to talk about the culture, definitely they care about their employees. So inclusion is probably part of it. So how you approach to the inclusion initiatives in a workspace?
Yeah, I hinted at it a little bit in my last response, right? It begins by understanding who works for you. And one way is simply to look at your demographics, understanding who your population is. Are they male? Are they female? What generations are they in? Are they single? Are they family, right? So some of those basics to understand, because one of the examples that I would share, a simple one is like, well, why does that matter from inclusion perspective? For years, organizations, and it still happens now, would host team building or social activities after hours. But
Yeah.
there are a lot of people who can't do after hours because they have family responsibilities or places they need to be. So they might miss out on the after hours activities, which then leads them to not feel included.
Mm.
And that's a simple example. It's sort of understanding your
Yeah.
people, and what their lives are like in bigger ways than just the workplace. But the other part of this, because this is where my science piece comes in, is I use a model for looking at culture that is ecosystem based. If I'm going to show up every day to work and bring my best energy to work every day, there needs to be in place an ecosystem of support that enables me to do that. So when someone doesn't feel included or doesn't feel like they can show up and bring their authentic full self to work, what we're going to do is look at the system in that surrounds them. Does
Mhm.
leadership have the training and ability to help people feel included, to design a culture within their mini team that is one where everybody feels they like they have a voice and they belong. What does communication look like across the organization? Are you communicating in a way that meets multiple people in multiple different ways with multiple messages? Because one size does not fit all with communication.
Yeah.
When you think about leadership styles, in the land that we live in and across the world, we see a lot of organizations promote really good individual contributors with the expectation that because they were good at the job they had, they'll probably be good as a leader. And
Mm.
we know that training is often required to help people move from being an individual contributor to a leader who can see with a broader lens, who can have a different perspective. Um, so it really requires thinking about the pieces of the organization, the policies, the procedures, the norms, the way we do things around here. And it could be an organization or it could be a team.
Hmm. Yeah.
Culture, you can have a culture in a team of five, and you can have a culture in a team of 5,000. In that
Yeah.
team of 5,000, you're going to have lots of subcultures.
Yeah.
But really
Yeah.
intentionally thinking about how do we want this place to feel,
Yeah.
and then looking for opportunities within it to enable that to happen naturally rather than forcing it to happen.
Yeah, that comes to my follow-up question as you said, yeah, the culture of 5,000 or a culture of five people in a team can be different. But as there are so many giant companies, including ours, the company culture is great, but it may not be applied to
Mm.
every corner of the organization. Is there kind of a strategy, or I don't know if you come across this question too? How is there any way to reinforce this
Mm.
type of culture goes to as much space as possible in the organization?
Mm. It is, as much as I want to say it's easy, the reality is it's hard work. It's
Yeah.
hard work. I mean, I'm going to use a nature metaphor, right? So, we're here in the northern hemisphere. We're in summertime, so right now, if everybody were to look at their own garden or somebody else's garden, you could look at that. I can look at mine out the window and I can say, whew, that garden doesn't quite look the way that I would like it to look. It's a little overgrown. I see some weeds in there that I thought I pulled those. I didn't pull those right. So I can look and assess, and then I gotta go do some work on it. I gotta pull the weeds. I gotta do to make sure that the things I want have room to grow. We are all gardeners of culture, right? So we are all responsible for it. And if we do not tend to it on the regular, it will have a mind of its own. It will grow what it wants to grow. It will grow how it wants to grow. Some of the things you really wish would grow will probably get overgrown, right? And so culture is something that needs to be tended to regularly with intention. I mean, by regularly, that might look like daily, weekly, monthly. It depends on how well ingrained that the culture is in a team, whether it's the positive or the negative, right? And the behavior scientist in me would say that's a thing that is I can't help but not share it. Um, it is easier to keep doing something that I've always been doing than it is to stop doing it just straight up. Um, and if I want to stop doing something straight up and I want to do it differently, I have to intentionally replace it with a new behavior.
Mm.
Because our brains are programmed to just do this, do this, do this. They're naturally, because everything I'm doing right now on camera is pretty much subconscious, right? But if I want to show up a different way, I have to intentionally replace it with a new habit. so that my brain starts to build new pathways and new ways of being. And it would be amazing if saying something one time caused everybody else to behave differently. The world would be a very different place. But the
Yeah.
reality is it takes practice and
Yeah. Yeah.
intentionality to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I agree. Love your analogy, even though I wish, as you said, that there's a good culture, then say it, then applies to every corner of the
Yeah.
space of the organization or the world. However, as you said, everyone's garden could be differently. It really matters to the gardeners who
Mm-hmm.
owns that piece of land. How
Mm-hmm.
they handle it and paying attention to it to what may grow. Maybe some people just love the jungle in the backyard. Who knows? Yeah.
This is true.
Yeah. Uh,
Yep.
okay. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, I know you are an avid uh, podcaster.
Mm,
Would you mind to share a little bit about your topic and the guests that
mm.
you invited to your show?
Sure. Sure. So this is, I'm by avid, if by avid you mean this is my fourth podcast. So this is the fourth time I've co-hosted or hosted a podcast. This is my second single host. And this one grew out of, I had, my last podcast was focused on culture building in organizations. I paused that a couple years ago, and last year I had the opportunity to walk the English way of the Camino in Spain, which is a 73-mile path from the northwest coast to a town called Santiago de Compostela, um, that people have been pilgrimaging for centuries. And while I was out there on about day three, because I committed to myself, no AirPods, no stories, no music, no nothing from the moment I landed across the pond till the moment I returned. And so I was out there just listening to myself and the birds. And halfway through, all of a sudden, I was like, huh, this, I think this is where I'm supposed to be. It was sort of like I'm meant to be in closer relationship with nature. And I haven't left it since I stopped teaching. It's everywhere I go. It's in everything I do. It's tattooed on my arms. Nature is very much a part of my being, but that revelation while I was out there was one of many revelations while I was on the path, but that really hit me. And I came home and I thought, well, what am I going to do with this? I'm not going to go be a park ranger and I'm not going to just go off and, live in nature, although that sounds fun. I have a family and relationships I'd like to be around. And so eventually what emerged for me was the idea of hosting a podcast that marries my two loves, which is nature and health and well-being, helping humans thrive and nature. And so the podcast is called Rooted. And it is a podcast that explores the connection between nature and well-being. And I have a variety of guests on it. It's hard. There's so many people I want to talk to. So this podcast will hopefully go for a while. But experts who study that connection. I am, a scientist is still in me. So I wanted the data, I want the research. And so I talk to those individuals. I also talk to other individuals who have specific training in it. The podcast that most recently came out is with an extraordinary human who is an artist slash creator. She thinks we're all creators. You're a creator. I'm a creator. We're creators. Who also is a forest and therapy nature guide, who has a degree in horticulture. She was the most fascinating combination. And then she makes nature-based art. And so it's those kind of conversations where I have on the podcast, which is just exploring how other people are working nature into their lives, how it's helping them feel better, more alive, more connected. So that's the Rooted podcast.
That's awesome. Is that part of also part of that is also your your coaching? Because I believe you
So
have the
I
coaching
do,
business. Yeah.
yeah. So I Rooted Soul is sort of the overarching umbrella of my fun things that I do when I have time. And underneath that is Rooted the podcast. I have training in a couple different coaching modalities, and I'm at any given time coaching, 0 to 3 people. That if they in the space that I have to coach around their own growth and development. We do a lot of work around unwinding stories that no longer serve. So I do serve as a coach and have some training that complements that. I'm certified in Reiki and energy healing. And so we do some somatic work and connection to self. And then I do a lot of speaking, whether it's through my day or my side, speaking and presenting. I think that comes from the middle school teacher in me. I'm not afraid to stand up in front of a group and share and teach and facilitate. So those are some of the things I do as part of Rooted Soul in my spare time.
That's awesome. Sounds like a fascinating. Your life is really full of activities, also educational aspects in so many ways. So I'm sure the world thanks you for what you contributed to the people around you.
Mm.
Yeah. So you talked about Reiki. That's a
Yep.
type of like energy work, right?
Yeah,
So
so
how do you see
Reiki,
that? Yeah, Reiki, I thought it's kind of it's the opposite of the traditional science, isn't it?
it,
If I
it does
may,
feel a little bit like that, right?
yeah,
Like, because you
uh-huh,
can't see it. Can't
yeah,
see it.
yeah,
Um, we are all made of energy. I mean, if you go all the way down
yeah,
to the
yeah,
atom, it's made of energy, right? Our hearts run on electricity. I mean, it's incredible when you think about it. We conduct electricity. If you in cold months, you can spark and you can literally conduct
yeah,
electricity. We have energy
yeah.
runs through us all the time. Reiki is an ancient practice of facilitating the movement of energy in another person's system. So I'm not giving them my energy. I'm acting as a conduit for energy when I work with someone. So it's similar to what looks like when you get Reiki or you give Reiki. You're often the person I'm working with might be laying down fully clothed. And I work my way through their energy systems, often mainly the main areas of being the chakras or the energy centers of the body to help them open, to help them connect, to help them flow. Anybody can do this. I've been trained now, I think, wow, it's probably been about 18 years since I went through my first training. Um, and it's something you develop. And I could tell anybody who's listening on the call, if you were to sit, get your feet flat on the floor, kind of let your body relax and ground, and you just rub your hands together and with the intent of creating some friction, but also connecting that opening up that, and then you let them just sit near each other. If you sit with it eventually, and I can feel it because it usually comes to me fast, you can feel kind of like there's a little resistance in there. Like you're kind of holding a little bit of if you press, you might feel a little resistance. If you let it come out, might feel like it wants to expand. It's easier to do if you're on your own, but that's Reiki. That's moving energy through your system. And then as a practitioner of that, I'm helping individuals do that in a relaxed state, helping them ground, getting that energy to sort of run back into the ground. I personally, of someone, when I go work with my own Reiki practitioner who works to help me for years and years, my upper chakras were more open. My throat was working a lot, my brain, my third eye was working, all this part was working a lot, but my lower was kind of shut down and I wasn't very grounded. And I started work in more recent years to get grounded and to drop further into my body and um, not spend so much time in my head, but spend more time connecting to the energy of the rest of my body. And
Mm.
so that's a very simple example of what energy work might look like and what that experience is.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That's fascinating. Actually, I'm from China. In China, that people trust herb
Yeah.
medicine and also a traditional medicine and also energy. Actually,
Yeah.
we have a tea, have all that kind of things. But I personally, I didn't really have the experience.
Mm.
Mm, yeah. However, we had some kind of superstition things, but I don't know if that's similar. But it's interesting. I did experience something as Ricky as the sound system. Like my former colleague practiced that, and then she brought that to work. Actually, we had
Oh,
a
so she
session.
was doing sound healing with the different
Sound
bowls.
healing, yeah, different bowls. And that really relaxing for sure. Yeah, it's very
Hmm.
relaxing. Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah,
important.
so that practice is in sound healing looks in lots of different ways too, right? Again, uh, sound has resonance,
Mhm.
music has resonance, notes have resonance. They all vibrational patterns.
Yeah,
And so the in that case, it's likely that there would be for each of the different energy centers, there's a different bowl with a different resonance, which helps the body relax. I love a good sound bath.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's nice. It's nice.
Hmm.
That's the closest I felt
Mm.
about. That's why I at least I understand what Reiki is.
Hmm.
Before that, I have never heard of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. It's the chi is another way to talk about the energy
yeah.
that moves through our body. And it
Uh-huh.
can get stuck
Yeah.
and it can move quickly and it can move sluggishly and it can do a lot of different things. And so tuning into our bodies, whew, we spend so much time in our heads tuning in our bodies and Reiki and sound baths and all of that is one of a variety of tools that can help us connect to our
Our
bodies.
body. Yeah. I
Mhm.
think whatever way works as long as we, yeah, pay more attention to the awareness of our body and the responses to the surroundings is a good thing.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah, it's
agree?
interesting. I just had a thought as we were talking for years, I worked with a lot of male populations over the years, heavily male populations. And for years, I would use the analogy that, your body is a machine that needs maintenance, right? So we need to make sure we're putting good fuel in it. We need to make sure we give it a break, give it some rest, because if you ran a car nonstop for days, it's eventually going to die, right? So we need to care for our bodies. But
Mhm.
I think as I think about that, I'm like, yes, but I think it's yes and really. Our bodies, the human body is really extraordinary, way more extraordinary than a car, right?
I agree.
There's
Yeah.
so much happening inside of it to the point we're talking about. There's energy moving through it that we can't quantify, that we can't bottle, that we can't get our hands solidly around unless you're skilled in the art of sensing that energy. Um, one of the things that it comes up for me is and I talk about this on the podcast and in the world that I work in, is we as humans live a three-layered existence in modern society, modern day. We
Mhm.
are nature. We are nature. We are nature is not other. We are literally natural creatures, and we often forget it, right? We think we are better
All the way.
than, more than, and we're just the same. But we're also, that's the world, right? The natural world. We live in nature. Like I'm looking out my window, I'm in nature. I'm not outside of it. I'm in it. It surrounds my home. I'm in nature. Then the other layer we live in is the built environment. Like the built environment is the homes that protect us, the cars that move us, the clothes we wear, the man-made things. Those are a really important part of modern life. They aren't necessary to live. It's absolutely possible to live without all of that, but sure is more comfortable to live with the built environment in today's day
Yes.
and age. And then the last layer is the artificial layer, the artificial world. Like we're in it now and we know we're real, but we're on video, and thank goodness for
Yeah.
that. It's letting us see and connect with people around the globe, things we couldn't have
Yeah.
imagined, years ago. And so being aware of those three layers of the way we live is really important. And what I have observed with myself and with others is we often forget about the foundation, which is the natural piece.
Nature. Yeah.
We get so stuck in the built and we get so stuck in the artificial, even, in our phones and all of that. And so I just share that as a way to think about like just considering a different worldview a little bit. Like what happens when you think about those three layers and
Mm.
you consider
Yeah.
where you fit in them and how much time you spend in each of those layers every day.
Yeah. Definitely. Thank you for sharing this. I feel educated after having this conversation with you. So, how do you bring energy to the workspace? I mean, have you tried to bring to the programs that you do for culture? Uh,
I would say the place it comes through most is grounding moments, where we will pause, connect, reflect. What am I feeling in this moment? What's coming up for me in this moment? Where is it in my body? I will use that on a regular basis. Um, I will talk about the energy we bring into a room, the energy of a room, because that's real. I mean, it is very real. You can have someone's energy absolutely impact your energy. When I worked at
yeah.
a health system years ago, we we used a heart math system there, which is all about heart coherence and the energy of whether or not our heart is in coherence or kind of all over the place. And there's a monitor that you can hook up to your ear or your finger that can tell you whether or not you're in coherence. And then we would train the clinicians to breathe, to get the energy of the heart to return to coherence. Because when a physician walks into a room in coherence to work with a patient, it is a very different situation than if a physician walks into a room in non-coherent state. The energy of that room, the ability to connect with the patient, it changes the dynamic. And so that's a tiny example. It varies on the environment, it varies on who I'm working with, it varies, but gratefully, I think more and more people are talking about energy and understanding that it's not woo-woo, that it's real and there's science to it. I didn't share the science studies today, but there's more and more coming out about the connection between all of that and its impact on our daily living.
Yeah. Talking about the connection, as I mentioned earlier, my podcast is dedicated to amplifying the importance of human connection too.
Mm.
Just like you and me, we're connected, and I feel the strong connection. As you also mentioned, when I reached out to you, you didn't feel like I was a stranger, although we haven't really talked. We just have this kind of connection. And then after we know each other even more, this connection just bonded stronger. I think that's also the energy and the connection.
Mm-hmm.
Because just earlier, my husband was saying, I don't like someone, but I couldn't pinpoint that. I said, why you don't like someone? He said, I don't know. It's maybe
Yeah.
just, yeah, it's just the energy doesn't meet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's it's true. Sometimes you just can't tell. Just like
Yeah.
some people may be perfect people, perfect two people, but they are energy may not meet. Then
Mm-hmm.
they can't get along as well. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And it looks lots of different ways. Yeah, the energy of the human system is extraordinarily powerful. We don't realize how impactful it is.
yeah.
And you probably, when I think about what you've shared, there's also times when you're like, I just, you might have heard the term, I just can't get a read on them.
Mm.
Can't get a read on them, right? Well,
Yeah, yeah.
because their energy is blocked. They're
That's
closed it
exactly
in.
that's what I asked my husband. I said, why? Then he said, the person seemed to never want to participate or get like involved. Also, that's why. Even though my husband is not so not extroverted, not so sociable, but he likes people to make the effort to
Mm-hmm.
communicate.
Mm-hmm.
That's all actually, that's what I interpreted. I said, oh, that's why. So there
Mm-hmm.
is that reason. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And in those circumstances, that's where, which I have no doubt the two of you, landed there when you talked it through is, you never know what people are carrying. You
Yes.
never
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And I use that so often when the person cuts me off on the road, when somebody treats
Mhm.
me in a way where I'm like, what in the world did I do? Right?
Yeah.
Remembering that I didn't do, I was just here. And that maybe they had a bad day. Maybe something horrible happened, or maybe they had a bad life.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
never know what someone's carrying. And so having that, giving that grace unless someone's being truly damaging, right? We're not going to just do that happen, but just trying to have the grace and ground yourself and stay open and show care, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes that can open people up, and sometimes it's not enough to do it. But I always use that as just that's my backup is,
Yeah.
sort of may the force be with you, because I'm not
Yeah.
sure what's going on, but I know I can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So I
I
try to
agree.
let it be.
Yeah, I agree. We only can control how we react, how we behave. And if
Mm-hmm.
someone else did something that is not understandable, that's on them. And
Mm-hmm.
then we just approach things with kindness and curiosity and
Mm-hmm.
compassion.
Yeah.
Compassion. Yeah.
Yeah. And stay
That's
true to yourself.
yeah, exactly. Stay true to yourself. That's all you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how important is kindness support in the professional and personal growth, as we talked about?
Mm. You know, I have had the honor of connecting with some individuals over the years who were so kind to me, and they didn't need to be, or it was their role. Maybe it was a leader, um, or someone who saw potential in me that I maybe didn't see. And so when I think about growth, often I'll go back to those individuals and words they shared to help me see maybe what I couldn't see in myself. Um, and that kindness stuck with me. Um, and I try to bring that everywhere I go. But again, I am human. I am not perfect. I bring my full self to work every day. And so I think that is another great example of we need to be as kind to others as we are to ourselves. One of the things I taught you, one of the practices I use in one of the workshops I teaches just this idea, like if someone came to you with, the story you're telling yourself right now. Wait, no, I'm doing that backwards. If you took, let me flip that. If you took the story you're telling yourself right now to your most dear friend about something you did or something that happened, if you that you're not happy about, if you took that to them and you said, "This is what happened, and this is where I'm at," and however you were feeling, is that friend going to berate you? Is that friend going to tell you you were stupid, or gee, you should have known better, or I can't believe you didn't do that? Or is that friend going to say, oh my gosh, look at you, you're human. You made a mistake. Did you learn
Mhm.
from it? Are you
Yeah.
growing from it?
Yeah.
Wow. They're going to support you. They might challenge you a little bit, but they're going to encourage you to grow, and they're going to be kind. And I think one of the things we are, and I know it, and there's a reason it exists, but from a science perspective, but we are so hard on ourselves, so hard on ourselves. And so what's one of the things I really encourage everybody is, it's nice if everybody else is kind to you, but if you need to be kind to you, you
So
need to
true.
treat yourself the way you want your friends and others to treat you. That is
Yeah.
so, so important,
So
because we are
important.
so hard on ourselves.
I agree. I agree. That is so powerful. I agree. The people who show kindness that they don't have to, that definitely shed lights on some people's lives. But most importantly is that we need to realize that being kind to ourselves is so important.
Mhm.
Uh, I have so many examples that I stood up for myself and just to show I value myself. Even the entire world may dismiss me. That actually alone gives me so much power and strength
Mm,
and hope, especially in the space, in the moment that maybe I don't get the external support and resources right away. However, I'm personally so grateful for the people just like you who showed kindness, and you didn't have to, but you
mhm,
created a space for me and took the time to listen to me. And no matter what, you made that moment so meaningful. And forever you will be the light in my
mm.
life. Yeah,
Thank you. And that you saying that to me honors those who did the same for me,
yeah,
because I had people like you who, when I reached out, held that space for me. And so I feel that makes me feel good that I am honoring what they did for me. So it is a ripple effect in every direction.
yeah, definitely. I love this kindness ripple effect. Totally.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're approaching the end of our conversation, what does be a light mean to you?
Mm. Well, I hit on it a little bit, but and I'll put a different angle on it, right? So being a light to others is an extraordinary opportunity. We have to be a light to ourselves, um, too. And I'm going to pull those two together to say one of the things I have observed over the years in myself, in others, is that, and especially in the groups of people, I work with a lot of human resources and benefits professionals, and their archetypes are caregiver and hero. And so they want to show up and save the day and make everybody feel loved and taken care of. But it is, you can count on me for a metaphor any day, anytime. And so to use a metaphor, a lantern, an oil lantern, that we want light from, or a battery powered lantern, whatever it is, does not deliver light endlessly. It must be recharged and refilled. We can't, if we just give all of everything we've got and we never take time to recharge, refill, self-care, generating light purely from your desire to help others, so others will see you, so others will see themselves, without nurturing your own light, eventually you are at very high risk that light is going to burn out. And so, yes, be kind, be a light to yourself, but also like recharge the light. Like take time to nurture yourself so that you can continue to give and you don't burn out.
Yes. Thank you so much for such thoughtful and kind reminder for those who are a light to others. Yeah. Thank you for so much. Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom and your journey with us. Are there any other parting words you would like to share with our audience?
I would say I don't want my one tattoo that is not nature based, and I don't have a ton of tattoos. I just have a few on my arms, but the one that isn't nature based says keep dancing. And I would say through the hard seasons, through the challenging times, this for me, keep dancing is a reminder when it seems hard to keep playing, keep moving my body, be in my body, have some fun periodically, use dance to move energy that I need to get in or out or whatever it might be. But, sometimes staying rooted means keep dancing.
Thank you. That is incredible. That's incredible message. By the way, I love dancing and just keep dancing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Susan. I'm so grateful for your support and for being on this podcast to share your journey, your wisdom, and your powerful messages and reminders for our audience.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Thank you. And the audience, friends, if you like this episode, please do like, share, and comment. And also reach out to Susan on LinkedIn. Are there any other platforms you would like them to reach out to?
LinkedIn is the best place to find me. Of course, they can find the podcast Rooted by searching Rooted Nature and Wellbeing. If you just type those 3 words into any podcast player, you can find the podcast there. But LinkedIn tends to be where I hang out a little bit every day.
Great. Thank you so much, Susan. Our audience friends, thank you so much for listening and watching. And remember, everyone has the power to be a light to themselves and to others. So be kind to yourself, be kind to others. See you next time. Bye.